Hello everyone. For this week's tutorial, I would like to go through how you can create motion graphics, something like the one that you see on the screen here. So I'm assuming some of you guys would like drawing, or even if you like photography or things like that. If you know how to use Adobe Photoshop, this should be fairly straightforward to do. And I'll be showing you guys After Effects. Don't worry, it's all introductory level, so hopefully you should be able to follow along. But before we get started, I would like to quickly introduce myself. So hello everyone, I am Tomie. I'm based in Christchurch and I teach the level 5 diploma in web and graphic design across nationwide. Other than Yoobee, I'm also a freelance graphic designer, so hopefully some of my skills can come into play and hopefully you will enjoy this content. Cool, so without further ado, we'll get started. Easier to animate when we move it into After Effects. So the second part is the After Effects part, which will be looking at adding motion to your graphics, whether it is illustration or photos. You can just follow along. And lastly, I'll be showing you how you can export for your social media. Cool. So let's have a look at the Photoshop file. So here's an illustration that I've made with Photoshop. I've made sure to rename the layers. So naming is really important to do during your kind of like Photoshop kind of stage. The reason why is that when we move it into After Effects, it can be quite hard to manage if your layers are called layer 1, layer 2, layer 3. It can get quite frustrating. So please try to rename your layers correctly. So I just named the face is face and in here is here, just something very straightforward. You might be wondering, hey, why do I have two of the kind of same layer? Actually, this one here is just the effects that I added on top to kind of get the RGB kind of glitch look, but you don't have to do that. Long as you have just layers separated, it should be all good. Now in the case if you want to do this, in After Effects, I will show you how you can pre-compose, which is basically like grouping things together. But for now, once we have our Photoshop file nice and ready, we are ready to move it into Adobe After Effects. Cool. So if I just minimize my screen here, we're going to go into After Effects. So with After Effects, you can just import through the Photoshop file that contains different layer, so it can be saved as a .psd. I might just quickly show you that there first. So you want to go File, Save, and then we should save the PSD. If it's not a Photoshop extension, just make sure you go to File, Save As, and save on your computer, and tutorial, here you go, and you can just save it as a Photoshop file, and you can just hit save and go OK for that one there. Okay, so if we're happy with this, we can just close or minimize our Photoshop for now, and we're going to go into After Effects. So this is what the file looks like when it's completed. I've created like a pre-comp of this. I'll talk a bit more about it as well soon. Okay, so if I just go into new project, just gonna save this one. Okay, so when we open up After Effects for the first time, it should look something like this. Otherwise there will be a pop-out window. In this case, what we want to do is we just simply want to move the Photoshop file, import it into After Effects. So to do that, we're going to go up into File and Import File. So make sure you follow the step properly, otherwise you might not have the layers correctly imported through. So just make sure you go up into File, Import File, and we're going to pick the file that we want, and I'm going to make sure it is import as composition, retain layer sizes, and make sure that is ticked, create composition, and you go import, and yep, looks great. So you're just going to go OK. Once we've done that, we should be able to find composition. The composition icon looks something like this here, and next to it says tutorial, which is the name of that Photoshop file. If I double click here, it will automatically add it to our timeline, and it'll expand out the different layers that we had with Photoshop, as you can see here. So I have that 2 different hair layer, my face layer, and I have kind of effects that I've added on top. So things that I'll be really animating is actually just mostly the hair. I might be playing around with position to have that kind of revealing upward motion. So I'm going to do the pre-comp now. So I want to pre-comp the 2 hairs together to kind of group it together. So if I have this one selected, I hold my shift key and select the one on the bottom. So as you can see now, as both of these is highlighted, means both of these are selected. We're going to simply just right click and go pre-comp, and it'll give us an option to give the pre-comp a name. So I want to name this composition is here, like so, and we're just gonna hit OK. Cool. So that, as you can see here, created a pre-comp of the hair. And if we double click this, we can see the 2 different hairs layers in that one composition. But I'm just going to close that and have it nice and pre-comp, and we're just going to do the same for the face as well. Pre-comp, and I'm just going to name it face. Cool. So now we have it nicely kind of grouped. Makes it a little bit easier for us to animate. So this one here is actually fairly straightforward. We're going to be using a tool called Puppet Tool within After Effects. So firstly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to play around with only 2 of the options. First one is the Puppet Position Pin Tool, and the other one is Puppet Advanced Pin Tool. So with my Puppet Pin Tool, what I'm going to do on the face, sorry, on the face, but on the hair composition, I'm just going to click on like so, and I can see the mesh. If you can't see the mesh, just simply click up the top here to enable the mesh, so you can turn it off and turn it on. And just going to simply click around like so. Okay, so that looks great. You can actually now, if we move forward in our timeline, we can move it around, but as you can see, it's moving way too much, and I don't actually want that. So this is when I'm just going to go back to my start point, when I need to use this one here, the Puppet Advanced Pin Tool. So what this does here is we can tell it to kind of not move. It kind of acts as like a pivot point, or a point that doesn't move. So it's gonna do around here because I don't want these parts to be moving around too much, and I think that should be alright. Okay, so the only ones that we really want to be moving is, if I just go back to the Puppet Pin Tool, is the yellow dots here. So if you want to expand this out, simply you just click and drag, and you should be able to find the options here. But if you can see now, if I move forward in my timeline, so it's best idea to move forward at the moment. So if we have a look at our timeline here, we have like the times in seconds, right? So this one here is 0 second, 1 second, 2 seconds, 3 second, etc. And at 0 second, we can, if we scroll down, we can see little kind of diamonds. These are called keyframes. So these things here. So what we told After Effects here is that at 0 second, these are the positions for this puppet tool over here. So as you can see here, puppet pin number 13, which is one of these ones, this one here, the position at the initial point is here. So if we make changes here, it's only going to override the 0 second mark. So that's the reason why we need to move forward in our timeline. So let's say at 1 second, we want to have a change in position. We want to change the position of these yellow circles because we don't want it to be in the same position, otherwise it's not animated. So move forward in our timeline, and we're just going to simply just click and drag to move it. I recommend not dragging too much, otherwise the motion looks a bit too much. We want to only have the subtle kind of movements that can kind of create a nice emphasis in the kind of slow kind of wind that's hitting on the hair. So something like that. So now if I go to the beginning and kind of scroll through like that, as you can see, the hair is already moving. and we have these green dots which enable us to have it not kind of move in that points, and that's what we want. And I think that looks pretty nice here. Just gonna hit play. Ooh, try again. I think that's great. So now what we can do next is we're going to copy the keyframes over. You can essentially just go forward in the timeline and make small adjustments, and you just keep doing that. That's also fine as well. I think that can give a more organic look, but there's also a way that you can just copy and paste keyframes as well if you want to speed up the process. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to scroll down, and you can see all of these kind of keyframes for these ones here. To select it, we're going to have to make sure we extend it. If you click here and if you hit U is a shortcut key to open up all the keyframes that we have been used. So now we can see the little diamonds. So what I'm going to do is scroll down, and we're going to just simply copy and paste across. So if I select, just click and drag in my timeline to select the keyframes I want. So I want to have all of these keyframes. Just make sure we select this one as well. So let's start again, like so. Okay, so once we've done that, we're going to hit Control C to copy. If you're using a Mac, it will be Command C. I'm just going to write the shortcut on the screen for you as well. So Command, that's for the Mac, otherwise it is Control for Windows. Plus C is copy, and then we're going to paste it. So Control plus V to paste. Okay, so Control C. So what I have is I've copied the keyframes here, and I'm just going to move forward in my timeline and Command V to paste, like so. And you can just keep repeating this process, and hopefully, ooh, this is actually not looking that nice. So let me try again. Let me re-select these ones, make sure that I didn't select the wrong one. Copy and paste. Cool, that looks better. Okay, and do the same. Move forward and paste. And I'm going to copy this, just only this part here to finish it off here. Cool. Now go to the beginning, and we're going to hit play, and we can kind of see the subtle wavy animation motion happening, applying to the hair itself. Now you're more than welcome to adjust this, but now I'm going to show you is adjusting kind of positioning of this. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to hit U. U is a shortcut key to just collapse and expand out. So I'm going to hit U, collapse it. We're going to just simply, we're going to play around with the position of going point A to point B. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to simply just pre-comp this one, so it's like a group within the group. So select the hair and the face, and I'm going to go pre-compose, and I'm just going to name it portrait, but you can name it whatever you like. Okay, so next what I'm going to do is play around with the position. So I'm going to say transform position. So I'm going to add an initial position, but I want this initial position to start at 2 seconds, so I can just drag my keyframe across. And at 0 second, I actually want it to be a little bit down. So these two numbers here that we see on the screen, the first one represents the x-axis, so that's the sideways axis, and then the second one represents the y-axis, which is the up and down vertical axis. What I'm going to do is I want it to be at the beginning, going to be around here maybe, and when we hit play, it's going to move up like so and play the animation. Yeah, and I think that looks pretty good to me. The next thing I want to do is I want to have it faded, so that way when we have this, for example, on Instagram, and if it's playing on a loop, it can be seamless, and just keep doing this, but it'll be fading out and then fading in kind of motion. So what I'm going to do there is we're just going to simply play around with opacity. So we're going to add an initial keyframe here, and this keyframe we want it to be 0% because we don't want it to be visible. Go forward in our timeline and we're going to make it 100%, and then we're going to go forward in our timeline maybe just after 5 seconds. I'm going to make it 100%. Click here to add the keyframe there, and I'm going to finish it off with the 0% at the end. Now, so if we play from the beginning, fades in, shows the motion, and it fades out, and it'll be on the loop like so. Lastly, I'm going to show you how you can export. We're just going to go up into File, and we're going to go into Export and Add File, or Add to Adobe Media Encoder Queue. And it should be like so. Make sure it says H.264, that's the MP4 file format, and you can simply click here if you want to change the location of where you want it to be saved. I'm just going to save it on my desktop, and we're just going to simply push the green button for play, and that should be doing the rendering process. So hopefully you guys found this tutorial useful. Let us know in the comments how you might be using this motion graphic. Thank you everyone.